to dawnlight. Welcome to Forfelliness Belysning illumination from the ancestors, guiding your path today.
Every day, someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great-grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them.
Good morning and happy Tuesday to you. Today we celebrate the courage of the god Tyr. Today we also embrace, I want to take a minute and just call out our sponsors for today's show. Of course is aiper-garden, and wonderful opportunity to check many different things necessary to tend to that garden, particularly as we go to fall. Kind of put it to bed for the season so that we'll be ready again next year. We also want to call out and give a huge shout out to Feel the Good and Find the Good. We want to just bring that to your attention. Of course, we're always in search of finding the good amongst our community, so by all means, check them out as well. All of those can be found on our website at akumedia.akulfhednar.com. Links below, and just instead of putting videos, put /sponsors, so check them out. As always, our live chat is live this morning, so feel free to drop in those thoughts, those comments, and by all means, all of the prayers and hopes. So feel free to use that. I want to give a huge shout out to all of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed. I want to say how much I appreciate you, and I thank you so much for getting this message out, helping us to push it even further. Particularly for those who have liked, followed, and subscribed us on New Reality TV. New Reality TV, of course, .com is a streaming channel dedicated to just a plethora of spiritual perspectives that can help us to grow and learn and love. So be sure to check them out. All right, so today's lesson, we're talking about the stone, right? We're talking about the stone and the storm, and I think it's ironic that we're talking about the storm today, particularly given the fact that our friends, our neighbors, our loved ones in Western Alaska are very much just recovering from the pummeling they received from the sea as she reached out and lashed upon the shore there in some of those northern, particularly the western villages and towns. So for all of you who are affected by that, whether through loved ones or if you're listening there personally, my heart is with you, my spirit is with you, and all the love, all the energy, all the hope that you need, I will send to you. So, for those of you wishing to donate, we here at the Alaska ulfhednar will be making donations, both food and monetarily, to the support effort, helping them to get back on their feet as quickly as possible, get those homes recovered and hopefully lives restabilized. Obviously, quite a lot happened. So we are with you, my friends. Please accept the love, accept the hope, and going forward. So we're talking about the stone in the storm, and what that is essentially, the story goes that for many years a storm a stone, sorry, would have rested upon a shoreline, and the sea would constantly batter it, particularly during these heavy storms. And the stone held its ground for many, 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 many years. And so and time would go on, and the storms would continue to rage, and ultimately, one day, the stone decided to move, allowed itself to be moved by the storm surge. And the storm had won, or had the stone realized that maybe it was just looking at things from a new perspective now, and it needed to change. When we think about spending a particularly long time, I know people who have been. Myself was in one camp of belief for a decade before I realized that wasn't where I needed to be. That wasn't where my heart and my mind were telling me was appropriate for me. And so I had to go back, and I had to kind of re-engineer myself from the bottom up. I had to re-look at myself from a very different way. And when, of course, I did, other truths became evident, other realities, other interpretations of reality became very apparent, and I have since journeyed on this path now of learning and loving, and these universal truths that stem from understanding and reaching out and not binding ourselves with a particular narrow perspective on our spiritual travels. And so today's show, I want to kind of talk about that, in that, many times we will spend a very long time maybe not fully committing, maybe just kind of absorbing what's going on and feeling some of it's right and some of it's not fulfilling, and some of it makes sense and then some of it is sketchy, and then of course every text has its range of interpretations, right? So you have the radical and the not so radical that are all subscribed to the same practice, the same study, same centered around potentially the same documents, the same ideology, the same just kind of. And then we realize that maybe I'm different today. Maybe the adventures in my life, the changes, the emotional energies, the influential energies, all of these things may have created within me a change. And that change isn't really reflected in that previous belief. It's okay. When in my own personal travels, when I began my shamanistic journey in earnest, one of my ancestors spoke to me and they said, "You can be monotheistic on Monday, polytheistic on Tuesday, and agnostic or atheist on Wednesday. That's okay." Why? Because it depends on your relationship with your deity, with the gods, or a god, how you're looking at them, I'm always reminded when people say, oh, there's no way polytheism can exist. And I remember being many, many, many years ago, I was in the military. And one of the things that I remember about the military is the formations. We would all stand in a row. We'd be side by side and facing the officers or whomever. And I thought of an inspector who was going through the rows, and he was inspecting all of us to see if our uniforms were good and we fit and this, that, and the other thing. Their perspective of this formation. For had they stood at the end of the row and looked down at us, if the first man they saw, or woman they saw, was large enough, from their perspective, it would cover the remaining people. They wouldn't see those people. Those people would be invisible behind the first. But then as they stepped around and began to walk down the row, they would then see all the different people. In much the same way as they were standing and they were looking back through the people standing one behind another, right? The same effect could appear in that they could see just this one person in front of them and not look around and see the remaining ones behind them. So it really depended on their perspective as to how many people they saw, as to how many individuals they were able to identify and point out. Based on what I know of my spiritual journey, this is the same thing when we're looking at our deity. I think we have to consider for a moment this idea of infinity. Infinity is a really big number. And that number says that our deity, or God, whatever you want to refer to them as, is infinite in everything. On the same note, the teachings that I have speak of our spiritual self being comprised of energy particles within the universe, and those energy particles are assembled in such a way that we become self-aware, that we become a consciousness within the vastness, if you will, of the spiritual realm. And then that spiritual entity that we are is comprised within that composition of energy particles are several energy particles that a deity has cast out. And as we assemble that, those particles are just assembled in the consciousness that is us. And therefore, when that spiritual entity bonds to a physical form here on Midgard, and our sensory input, our emotional input is being pressed into our memories, thereby shared with our spiritual self, those energy particles of a deity are being enlightened. They're being connected to intellect and perspective and emotional construct that there is no other way to get. So our entity is bonded to a God, to a deity, to a spiritual entity, to our physical form. And the energies at which we interpret our sensory input and our emotional generation are then fed through our memories back to the spiritual entity and ultimately to the God. Now, I know this may seem as a very wild theory, but if you stop and think about it, it explains many things. Firstly and foremost, it explains how our gods know every hair on our head. They know everything about us, our thoughts, our feelings, our heart. Where is our heart? Our gods can tell that. They can tell that because they're receiving input from us. So whether we decide to look back upon these gods of the universe as if to put an S on God, or just retain a singular, or to recognize that as a spiritual entity is as individual as we are. There's no right or wrong answer. The Creator, which gives us life, Mother Earth, which provides us with energy and healing and growth. She provides the food at which we nourish our bodies with. So whether we choose to see one or many is purely up to each of us. It's a personal choice. Does it make one perspective more wrong than another? No. It's simply a different way of looking at things. It's a different view of our deity. I once made comments that said, think of a god as this infinite being, and therefore very large, right? Very large figure. If you had the space of Midgard to gaze upon this individual, would he look exactly the same to everyone that saw him? No. For some people would see him from the side. Some people would see him from the front. Some people would see him from this side. Some people may see him from the back. We'll all have different perspectives. We'll all look at them a very different way. And that's fine. That's wonderful. The idea that you're communicating with your deity is the important part of that lesson. So when we think about the stone in the storm, allowing yourself to change is okay. That's part of our existence. It's part of living. So a very important part. Okay. Today we talk about the runes. And of course the runes is being a gateway to the gods, allowing them to communicate with us and provide for us guidance. We're going to dig into a bag and we are going to pull out. Now remember, as I pull out the stave, again, I'm giving the gods, I've got my thumb on the other side, I'm giving the gods the time to alter based on my question. Of course, my question today is provide for us that opening wisdom, that morning wisdom to get things going. All right, and today our rune is Thorzaz. Well, Thorzaz, as you can imagine, is named for the god Thor. And so eventually it represents reconstructive forces, which I think is very appropriate today as we wish those upon the western shore of Alaska, the speedy recovery to the storm that they have just endured. So, Thorazaz today represents that we're directing our energy, we're directing force towards that which we wish to manifest, that which we want to accomplish, right? So that which we want to manifest here on this plane. So we're directing our energy, and we remember when we're focusing, when we're concentrating, and we're kind of moving all of that influential energy out of the way, concentrating, we're directing that energy, we're focusing that energy on a particular thing. So Thorazaz, I think, is very appropriate today, in that it kind of brings to mind that breaking the cycle of conflict, of brokenness, and beginning to regenerate, to repair, to push forward, and to make things whole again. So I think it's very appropriate that we wish all of those affected by the storms in Western Alaska, we wish you all the best, and we'll pass along the energy of Thorazaz to you. So may you heal, friends. All right, I have to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about how we can use the power of this ability to change and to kind of roll with the storm and make things better for ourselves, and certainly understand that change in our world. So we'll be right back after this short commercial break.
The air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy. New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
NewRealityTV.com.
Thank you so much for taking that quick commercial break with us. I also want to give a shout out to aiper-garden, of course. All your gardening needs, check them out. You can check those out on our website. And, of course, as always, finding the good. Find the good, of course, being a alternate, one of the our affiliates that provides for us that support we need to keep producing these messages. And of course, finding the good, because that's very much a part of everything we need to do each and every day, is just focus on finding the good. So check all them out on our website, akumedia.akulfhednar.com/sponsors. So check them out. All right. We're talking about the stone in the storm and the ability to withstand years and years and years of pressure, finally determining for what works for us. Remember, my ancestors have taught me that if it makes sense in the mind and it feels right in the heart, then chances are you're going in the right direction. You're on the right path. So those are our two buoys, if you will. Two buoys at which to keep us in the deep channel. So make sure that we're thinking about things. We're not just following blindly, and we're not just surrendering that which makes us happy, makes us feel good, makes us feel comforted and fulfilled, right? Content. So those are the things that we're looking for from our practice, our engagement in our spiritual beliefs. So, but one of the things I definitely want to cross today is to let people know and to let people understand that over time, our perspectives will change. This is part of growing up. This is part of being an emotional being. It's part of being essentially living our lives. I mean, it is what it is. So allowing ourselves to accept that change and to embrace it and to begin a study. Remember, we talked yesterday about getting that kind of that fire ignited and grow, right? So how do we do that? We, of course, learn about things. We go in and we investigate. We illuminate this darkness within our minds. So that's where we're going to go. And the thing to note is, like the rock, we may have stood the test of time, decades, in a particular belief, thinking that, well, I can't change now, right? I've spent so many years doing this, and this is the way, just the way it is. I mean, I could still change. Right? My grandfather used to say, and of course, being a very non-spiritual individual that he would say, old dogs can't learn new tricks. Yes, they can. They absolutely can, because they're changing, they're growing, they're evolving, and so are we. And so if we're the stone in the storm and we find ourselves being battered and we seem to be in constant conflict, we have to ask ourselves, is this the fight that we want to have? Am I saying that you have to change because you're facing a lot of conflict? Absolutely not. Sometimes, again, if we go back to the belief, and the belief says, that it makes sense, feels right, by all means, you can be that stone in the storm. But if not, and how do we secure that, or how do we determine that? We, of course, ask ourselves questions intrinsically, not extrinsically, not trying to measure ourselves on another person's bar, but actually measuring what's in here, right? So that's really the key to establishing whether we're going to be succumb to change, or whether we're where our authentic self feels we should be. So wherever those two, wherever the you find yourself on that spectrum, will provide for you a mental relief, a mental space at which you can then find comfort and find peace. So amidst the conflict, amidst what may seem to be conflictive, we can find peace, recovery. So be sure to talk to yourself. Find out what you really believe, what rings true in our heart and our mind. Really wrap our minds around that. Hypothetically, theoretically, pun intended, everything. Think of what you are and what you believe and what makes sense to you and what feels good in our hearts. And it's those beliefs that will then carry us through to our next level of evolution. All right? So today is Tuesday. We're celebrating the embracing of courage and justice and balance. This is what Tyr stood for, as we note from yesterday's rune. This is honorable. Being honorable not only extrinsically but intrinsically as well. So take today and learn more about your beliefs and who you are and where you stand, and then you'll find that you have a lot more mental comfort and mental ease as we begin our lives living authentically based in what we know, what we feel is right. All right? My friends, I wish you the very best Tuesday. We will see you again tomorrow morning where we will embrace the power of Wotan, or as he was later known, Odin. And we will then move forward. So have a wonderful Tuesday, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Love and light, my friends.
Watching Ulfhednar's Belysning, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska ulfhednar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.